doing that.
All right. So, sorry. We go live in 1 minute 30 rather, because I've set the timer on for 7 o'clock.
Okay.
So
I'm still staring at Mitchell Marsh celebrating and Aaron Finch lifting the trophy, and I'm just feeling sick.
All right, here we go. All right, ready, and we're good, and we're live. Welcome to Wickets and Pickets for this special live edition after Australia has just beaten New Zealand in the World T20 Finals from the Ring of Fire in Dubai. With me, I've got two of the happiest people you'll speak to this morning. We've got Phil Dillon and Richard Hanson. How are we doing, lads?
Am I still nightmare? Am I still in a nightmare? I'm not sure about you, Richard. Are you awake yet? Lost Richard.
No, sorry. There we go.
I said it's been a wonderfully terrible weekend for New Zealand sport, and I'll get to why in a few moments.
Ireland, to be sure.
Yeah, and so I said, I've had better Sunday afternoons, but let's give credit where credit's due. Australia played fundamentally better than New Zealand did, so I can't really begrudge that. In a lot of ways, not losing on a boundary countback actually hurts less than losing by 8 wickets. To be fair.
I was going to mention that. Well, not too much, but I was going to say surely this one probably doesn't hit you between the eyes as much as that game at Lord's. Hey, I think
no. And we can avenge it in 12 months at the MCG anyway. So there'll be time to get that back fairly quickly.
Well, and also, we'll start from the start. Good toss to win.
Yeah, I mean,
isn't it the way though? Isn't it the way when you need to do something like it always seems to be that like Australia have that little bit of luck when it comes to they won the toss against Pakistan, they won the toss against New Zealand, and that's really. Yeah, I know they had to bat pretty well to get to what they did, but I mean that was like straight away it's in their favor.
The only major side that they lost the toss against in the whole tournament was England, and England wiped the floor with them in the round robin. So right. Look, I'll tell you what was interesting is I was looking at the betting odds before play, and I think Australia were probably paying $1.70 and New Zealand were paying $2.40, something like that. It was fairly even, but with a slight advantage to Australia. Anyway, after the toss, Australia went down to $1.40.
Yeah,
exactly. For no other reason other than just the flip of the coin and the fact that the Australians knew that they were going to be chasing. I mean, this is definitely not sour grapes. You know what I mean? Australia played fundamentally better. I think if they batted like they did, and they happened to bat first, they probably would have got 200. But I mean, I think it is a bit of a failing of the tournament in general to suggest that the team who wins the toss and fields has a much higher chance of winning. I mean, we saw that in both semis, both teams chasing one. We've obviously seen it in the final. We saw it when India played Pakistan. We've seen it in a number of contexts. So I'm hoping that it might be a little bit more of an even contest between not so much bat and ball, but between chasing and setting a target next time.
But I don't necessarily know how you change that, because ultimately you're still going to have one team bat first and then another team chase, no matter what the case may be. So I see your point, and the statistics are pretty damning. I think it was 11 in a row the chasing team have won. So obviously,
well, I mean, I think
you can't dispute that, but.
Nothing against the UAE, but I mean, I think if you take the next tournament in Australia, obviously there'll be matches in different grounds around Australia with different conditions, different pitches, daytime, nighttime, etc. And I mean, I know there were some day games, but by and large, the conditions were exactly the same everywhere that we played. Sharjah was a little bit slower, Dubai was a little bit far, but just on the whole. So I think. In tournaments into the future, I think we're probably going to see that more natural balance between winning the toss and batting or winning the toss and bowling, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
it still comes down to the fact that I personally think that the side batting second, in all instances, are able to go harder than the side batting first, purely because the side batting first doesn't know what a good total is.
But then, if you look at New Zealand, I mean, New Zealand could have gone harder in the first half of their innings.
Yeah.
They could have looked at both semi-finals and said, okay, well, 165 or whatever it was, 166 was chased down. 176 was chased down the second semi-final. So let's try and go for 196. You know what I mean? Like, it's we were only 4 wickets down as well. So, it suggests to me, I mean, I know Kane Williamson played really well, but maybe, going a bit harder a bit earlier is no bad thing.
The last 5 overs of the Kiwi innings, they lost wickets at wrong times. And so, you got to give Aussies credit. I mean, I know Mitchell Starc went for 60 off his 4 overs. So he's
the least deserving winners medal I think he's ever going to pick up in his career.
But his last over was really good, and Jimmy Neesham, who'd taken England apart, only found a boundary once when he was at the crease. So you have to say the last 5 overs is where New Zealand lost it and Australia won it. I think of New Zealand, and that set up their run chase with. And like Nasser Hussain said in commentary, the key wicket was David Warner. If they got David Warner out early, then I would have put New Zealand big favourites, but they didn't. And then it's funny, like they're all taking credit for putting Mitch Marsh at number 3, but that only came after the whopping by England in the group stages when they put Ashton Agar instead of him, and then they decide, maybe we should put our best batsman in at number 3, or the bloke who hits the ball over the boundary more at number 3, which and then so they're now taking credit for making that wonderful tactical change, but it was all come about by accident, and I don't think anybody can take credit for it other than the fact that Mitch Marsh, became the star player of the final.
Well, what was I going to say? Going back to you saying that the Kiwis lost it in the last 5 overs, I actually think that, like, we can circle around to this. I mean, their power play, it was their smallest total in a power play throughout the whole tournament. They got 32 off the power play. So they're pretty quiet in that respect as well. I mean, I thought Josh Hazlewood bowled brilliantly. And, the ball he bowled to get Mitchell out was cracker, set him up for him perfectly, the cross-seam arm ball. But I just think that kind of it almost put the Kiwis in the back foot. I think if you compare the 2 innings, so you compare Marsh and Warner to Guptill and Williamson's partnerships, but, like, Martin Guptill was batting at a strike rate of 80, which is just not good enough in T20 cricket. And, like, especially from him, like, he's generally the guy that goes for it, whereas Kane Williamson plays the anchor role a bit more. So I think that's where, was the start of the demise for the Kiwis, as far as I could see.
Yeah, I think they were relying on bowling well. But yeah, you're right. I think a better strategy would have been to go out all guns blazing. If we get 200, that's great. But if we get bowled out for 120, well, we tried. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I think you're totally right. They probably should have been a bit more aggressive at the top.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, the other thing was
Martin Guptill hasn't been in touch the whole game, the whole series, really, has he? Throughout the tournament, he's not been at his best at all, really.
No, he did well against Scotland, but then I mean, obviously it's it's a slightly different set of opposition. I mean, he couldn't buy a run in the ODI World Cup in 2019, but I do wonder if we're almost getting towards the end of his career. Obviously, he's not in the Test side. He's not getting any younger. I mean, don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. One of England's, New Zealand's few double centurions. But yeah, maybe it's about time to get him out to pasture.
Yeah. I think the other. Sorry. All this live stuff. I don't like this live stuff.
um, no, the other thing I was going to say was Adam Zampa needs to take a lot of credit. Like, it was obvious that the Kiwis had picked they were talking about it in commentary, like the fifth bowler option, whether that was Maxwell or Marsh, and to really target them. But I thought, the pressure that Adam Zampa put on the batsman by just, so many dot balls and really not being able to get him away, actually then put pressure on them when they were trying to target that fifth bowling option. So they had to really, really go for it. And obviously that's what slowed the run total down.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, completely. Couldn't.
Well, they were still 140. Right. They were still 148 with 5 overs left to go. So for 148 to get to 170, just about 72, that's where I still think those last 5 overs they should have got to 200 from 148. I reckon.
But you say that, but then
after 10 last overs, 4 overs, sorry.
After 10 overs, they're at 57. So
yeah,
they
generally after that break,
they'd speed it up.
Yeah, generally after the break, though, the sides always put the foot down after the break, and that's what's happened. If you look at all the statistics throughout the tournament, sides have got more than 100 off their last 10 overs in every game. I would imagine all the big teams anyway, and that's the way it goes. They're just a bit more. I think the idea is not to lose wickets in that first 10 overs and then go for it from the last 10. Maybe New Zealand should have gone for it, like Richard was saying, going for it earlier. Hindsight's a wonderful thing, though. It's like,
well,
you got to give Kane Williamson some credit because it was basically hitting fours. He hardly hit a 6. I don't think he did hit a 6, did he? I'm not sure, but
I think he hit 2 sixes.
2 sixes, but the rest of it was about placement of the ball. It was a magnificent innings, and it's like it just shows to show that you don't have to be a Mitch Marsh type swing from the hip type player to score big in T20 cricket. You can still play proper cricket shots like Williamson did, and it was like, it's funny. I've read the reports in the Australian press, and they're saying a batting masterclass. I mean, right? I can't say it's a batting masterclass. It might be a hitting masterclass, but it's not a batting masterclass because I wouldn't want my kids to use that Mitch Marsh technique.
I think it's. I mean, batting master. I mean, we're using journalistic license and things, but then again, it was a knock for the occasion. I think they needed nearly 9 and over, and he came in and he bludgeoned the ball to all parts. I mean, it doesn't really matter how he did it. But you're right. I mean, you would like the thing is right. Mitch Marsh has now probably given himself 3 test matches at least in the Ashes off the back of a bit of hit and giggle in T20. So yeah, I mean, maybe his batting technique will be exposed in the longer form of the game. But for the purposes of this final, I mean, he did exactly what Australia needed him to do.
He did his job. Yeah. That's what he's paid to do.
Absolutely.
He stood up. Looking at, I wonder if that might be Aaron Finch's last tournament as captain, maybe although it's only 2 years since to the next one, I suppose. But
only 1 year, 335 days, less than a year until we get going. So it's next October in Australia. So it'll be fun.
Yeah, going back to that, I think you talk about he did. Mitch Marsh served a purpose, and he's another one that, again, much like Australia, probably timed their run perfectly. He's gradually got better. He had a decent knock over against the West Indies, then Pakistan now in the final. So I just wonder with the New Zealand total, I wondered if it was somewhat of a mental thing. If New Zealand were to get over to, say they got over the 180 mark or 185, 190 mark, I just wonder if that would have put a bit more pressure on Australia. Obviously,
for sure,
adds 10 more runs. But I'm just thinking before they even got in, because it seemed like Mitch Marsh got in and he hit a 6 off his first ball. They put the throttle down straight away.
Yeah, they wanted to break the back of the chase quite quickly, and it was a smart tactic, to be honest.
Which is what they did against Pakistan as well. So New Zealand should have looked at that footage against Pakistan and realised that when Mitch Marsh comes in, you'll go for it straight from the top. So we need somebody who can bowl. I think what they should have probably done is maybe bowled Trent Boult to him a bit earlier, with the ball swinging into him. I know there wasn't much swing per se, but Ish Sodhi to Mitch Marsh and David Warner was just like
it's money for old rope, wasn't it?
It was money for it. Unfortunately, there was could come a time in the tournament when Ish Sodhi was going to get found out, and unfortunately for the Kiwis, it was in the final.
I think the writing was on. I think the writing was on the wall when Devon Conway punched his bat when he was dismissed against England and broke his hand. You'll kick the ground, or you'll curse the air, or you'll do something. 9 times out of 10, everything will be fine. And of course, it just so happens to be the guy who gets ruled out the final. And I must say, I remember back when we were talking about this. I think I had to go for my player of the tournament, and I predicted that New Zealand would win and Devon Conway would be man of the tournament. Obviously that wasn't going to come true. And can we say, is it David Warner who's been awarded player of the tournament?
Yeah.
Goodness gracious me.
Nobody would have said that.
No one would have seen that coming 6 weeks ago. Why?
Well, I predicted Josh Buttler to be top run scorer, I think, if I remember rightly, and it would have been the case if England had got to the final, probably.
I predicted Babar Azam, so I got top right. Did David Warner go ahead of him? I think David Warner went ahead of him.
No, he didn't. No, 289 in the end, and I think Babar Azam was over 300, so he wasn't.
Okay.
But not bad. There we go.
Done.
You can.
Well done, Declan.
I picked 3 out of 4 of the semi-finalists, so to be fair, it wasn't terrible.
Well, I think we all picked India, didn't we? So India were.
Yeah.
No, I picked the West Indies. I picked New Zealand, Australia, England, and the West Indies to get through. So there we go.
And also, and I predicted Australia to go really far, and I backed them all the way. If don't
really say that? Did you really say that? Or you
don't check that.
I seem to remember me being the token Australian here, going, no, Australia's going to do better than you think, and you were both going, nah, they're rubbish. There's no way they're going to be found out on the subcontinent pitches. Blah 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 blah.
I should know better. I'm always a glass half empty guy, and I should know better than to predict that Australia will do badly because it'll always come back to bite you on the arse. Somebody I read this morning in one of the reports saying that, I think it was probably the BBC in a podcast or whatever, saying that Australia are like Germany in football terms. They
I was going to say, where are you going with this, Phil? Right, okay.
don't produce anything before the tournament starts. Everybody's writing them off, and all of a sudden they come. They just get better and better as the tournament comes on, and then normally end up winning it. And then so they're the cricket version of Germany in football or soccer, indeed, as you say.
I must say, this afternoon I've never received more messages of support from my English cricket friends. For when New Zealand are playing a T20 game. But there we are.
We were all wearing black at some point today, and unfortunately, we were all wearing black afterwards as well.
Not me, mate. Not me.
No, not you. But you were the one of the ones that were slagging Australia off, weren't you? I'm sure that was the case. Anyway, the best side won on the day. I'll say that
without question,
with gritted teeth. You can't knock them.
If you think about best sides of the tournament, I mean, you can't go too far past Australia. I know that they obviously got done by England. They came within 2 runs of losing to South Africa, but when it mattered, they came up with the goods. So
and it doesn't matter where people would say that they came through the easier group, but like you said, you can only play what's put in front of you.
Yeah, I mean, India picked those groups. India chose to have the group with Pakistan in it, and they chose not to have England and Australia in their group. So what can you do?
Yeah, exactly. So then you look at what they did to those people. I mean, they smashed West Indies, they smashed Bangladesh. So they can only do what they have to do, and they did it. Well, that was the only disappointing thing, is that West Indies didn't put up more of a fight. It was like in that last game, and you're thinking, right, if the West Indies do what they can do, then Australia might.
That was like a
Chris Gale tribute match.
Yeah,
that's what it was like.
It was a testimonial. It was a testimonial. Just quickly, I was just thinking there. Do you think, in a way, almost like New Zealand's final was kind of played a few days ago against England.
Yes, and you could see that it did. I did worry, with the exception of Jimmy Neesham, who refused to celebrate. You had everybody on the boundary going, "Oh my God, this is amazing! We knocked England out." England were the favourites, probably, on paper, because so great. But it's similar to the Rugby World Cup in 2019. England beat New Zealand in the semi and then choked in the final. That's the thing. Whereas Australia got past Pakistan, you were obviously pleased, for they've got Tasmanian Matthew Wade. But they knew that the job wasn't done. So, we just can't quite get there in these global tournaments. Although we have won one this year, so I can't be too annoyed.
Because I personally was a bit worried about that coming into this game that Australia had, after the, I suppose, heroics against Pakistan. But I mean, I probably would have liked it to be a closer match. Well, I don't know. Probably just because I think the last 10 overs seemed a bit of a formality. Really, like you've got
To be honest, look, take it from the guy who's got really used to losing these things. I promise you, it's much easier to lose by 8 wickets and 7 balls than it is to lose on a technicality. Look at the rule book. The bat slides the ball to the boundary. You know what I mean?
You can always say you're beaten by the better side on the day and then take that on the chin. You can't do anything about that. Exactly. They just perform better. They just perform better.
And you can see, your Australian friends and colleagues celebrating. You go, hats off to, whereas in, July 19, the English fans jumping up and down. And I'm like, come on. Yeah. If the shoe was on the other foot, I guarantee you'd be saying the same, the same thing. So, and actually, I think, but it reminded me a bit actually of the, the World Cup final in 2015, where it was over, fairly quickly. We gave it a good shot. If and the same would be the opposite. If we won, I'd prefer to belt you than beating you by half a run. You know what I mean? So
it's not good. Those close games aren't good for the heart anyway. So you don't like the one,
especially.
Well, I was sending messages to Richard during the England game. I was sending messages to Richard England during the England game saying the Kiwis have got this. He said, "I'm not convinced." And then so when Chris Jordan went for 23 off that one over, I said, "Are you convinced now?"
Yeah.
He said, "Well, not really." Still not. But it's
as lifelong New Zealand cricket fans, stealing defeat from the jaws of victory is a special team.
Trust me, it goes with me as well. Yeah. I mean, England do the same thing in all sport. England do the same thing in all sports. It's not just cricket. Yeah. And it was guaranteed that at some point in doing that semi-final that England would give New Zealand a sniff, and they did that. And fair play to Daryl Mitchell and Jimmy Neesham, who was magnificent. It's just a disappointing thing that they couldn't perform the same way in the final. And I'd like to have seen England get Australia chase down 109 and see how they would have coped with that.
The thing is, though, and Phil, I'm sure you can relate to this as an English fan of kind of any sport, though, it does make the victories that much more sweet. Like when we won the World Test Championship, it was a huge deal because we are just so accustomed to losing. When England won the Ashes 3-1, whatever it was, 2010, 11, it's a massive deal because they've just been in so many dire positions. Yeah. So trust me, Declan, as the Australian on here, I promise you, if you get used to losing, winning feels so much better than if you just win all the time.
Unfortunately, they win more than they lose in cricket. That's the thing. That's the struggle. Yeah. And now all I get now, wait till the Ashes, we're going to stuff you in that as well. And it's like, oh God, I can't cope with that as well.
Well, and just to kind of round off the tournament, I suppose, I just want to just touch base with you, success, not a success, favorite moments, that kind of thing. I think for me, the tournament itself, it's been pretty entertaining stuff. I mean, obviously we touched on the issues with the toss and that kind of thing, but seeing the likes of the associate nations like Namibia doing well, Scotland doing well, that's been great. And for me, also watching the way it's the good spirit has been played in, even with India, Pakistan was played in a great spirit in front of a full crowd, and I'm hoping that's kind of a sign of things to come. Because I'd love to see India play take on Pakistan in a Test series at some point. Like you've got Babar Azam and Virat series against each other. But just saying, like that wouldn't happen in any other sport. And I know, like we know the politics and stuff that goes on with that, but it'd be nice to see.
No, I do agree. I think I'll tell you the thing I enjoyed the most about this tournament actually was the unpredictable nature of it. Nothing against India, the cricket team, but the fact that it was set up for India to win this. If you look at the way the draw was, the way that the matches were, the timings of all the matches, the groups, etc., and then Pakistan go and knock over India on the first day or whatever it was, the first match, and then Afghanistan, then we beat India, and then Afghanistan are in with a hunt, and all that kind of thing. So there were a number of different subplots going on, and so it's always nice when a global tournament doesn't throw up the exact finish. Would anyone really have thought, oh, okay, Australia's going to play New Zealand in the final and Australia's going to win? I mean, they were ranked, number 7 in the world before this tournament happened. I mean, obviously England were going to be there or thereabouts, and people thought, that they had a chance of winning it, and India would have been there or thereabouts, Pakistan, etc. But there were definitely some twists and some turns, and that makes for good viewing, and especially for neutrals. That's a great thing about global tournaments, because you obviously have your team. But you also obviously you get to watch other teams play, and you get to just appreciate the cricket for what it is. So I like the unpredictableness of it.
I think that goes with the
territory. It'd be easy for me to say. Sorry, Declan, carry on.
I was just going to say that goes with it. I think obviously T20 is there's throws out results every now and then. So I think it kind of goes with it. Like, I think a lot of us before the tournament would say like the likes of the West Indies would have been tipped to go far as well, and that kind of thing. And they, couldn't get a win for love nor money, really.
No.
So I think, I tend to agree with you in the sense that up until the semi-finals, and even then, just touch and go the whole way. There was very few gimmies, and I think that in previous tournaments there definitely has been a few more gimmies, and also, if you will.
And also the fact that people before the tournament were saying, well, it's in Dubai, so subcontinent, pitches, obviously the subcontinental teams will do well, and yet here we are with Australia, New Zealand, and England, three of the 4 finalists. South Africa came within a hair's breadth of getting it through as well. So it's been good. I've enjoyed it.
It would be easy for me to say my favourite moment would be England absolutely belting Australia, but sadly, in the scheme of things, it mattered a jot, not a jot. So my favourite was actually Daryl Mitchell with that when he Superman save in the in the semi-final? Or I can't remember which game that was. When he died.
Yeah.
If 3 of those catches this morning had gone closer, it could have been a different game, but just bouncing in front of people at different moments. So that was. I mean, I love the fact that Namibia won a game and they did as well as they did, and we got to see some different bowling. I love Liam Livingstone bowling off spin and leg spin. I thought that was. I think that kid could be a real star of the future. In every sense of the word. He's not very brash at the moment. I know his hair's a different color every time he comes out, but he doesn't seem to be over the top. So I'm looking forward to what he does in the future. I think he could be a star of the next tournament if England use him in the right way. I think what they might have done wrong in that semi-final when they lost Jason Roy was to put Moeen Ali up. I know he got a 50, but I think he used up too many balls getting that 50, and they would have been better off putting Livingstone up the top and just let him swing from the hip like Mitchell Marsh did. And then if he doesn't come off, you bring Moeen Ali, because at that toy you had Moeen Ali and David Malan at the same time. And the run, even though they hit a few towards the end, it wasn't really enough. So that was my disappointment. The disappointment was that in crucial stages, England got it wrong. In hindsight, that's an easy thing to say. But my favourite was definitely Daryl Mitchell. And I like the fact that in any game you were really unsure, apart from when West Indies got nothing against England, you weren't really sure who was going to win the game. It was like on a knife edge in most of the games, except for the final, I suppose.
Yeah, I think one other thing that I'd like to say as well is that I think India need to do something to address their expectations game. You know, they remind me a little bit of the New Zealand rugby team. They remind me a little bit of the All Blacks in terms of global tournaments, because until recently, New Zealand hasn't been very good in global tournaments, despite being the top of the pops and being the richest union and all that kind of thing. So in a cricket context, there's obviously massive expectation on the Indians, and they very rarely meet that expectation. So I don't know what they need to do to be able to kind of to get that. But these global tournaments are going to keep coming round, and they're going to have to perform eventually. But I don't know how they're going to do it.
That was another thing I enjoyed, was India not getting to the next stage, because I think their cockiness was their big downfall. They went into games thinking that all we have to do is turn up because we're playing in conditions that absolutely suit our game.
Yeah,
and they didn't take advantage of those conditions. Whereas Pakistan, who you would say that's almost like a home game for them as well, they did take advantage of and they used conditions to their. Mohammad Rizwan was magnificent in the whole tournament, and Babar Azam not far behind.
Well, and Afridi as well.
Jahin Shah,
Harris as well. I was just thinking,
the first over he bowled against Australia. If that Mitchell Marsh one had been like an inch like the other way, and it was an umpire's call, so Mitch Marsh has gone for naught as well. So they're 2 down in that first over. Yeah. And it's a totally different game. That first over he bowled, it was magnificent, and it was just a bit unfortunate that was like umpire's call on that LBW to Mitch Marsh. I would have given that any day. To me, it looked like it was steaming into leg stump, which it did, but it was obviously just missing pitching outside according to umpire's call, which is obviously went Australia's way. So you have to have that little bit of luck every now and in a tournament, I think.
I just going back to that, I think that is one thing that I've also noticed from this tournament is it seems to be now we're kind of ushering in the new set of these T20 stars, or the new stars of cricket, if you will. I think like these guys that have got like a lot of personality and new personalities for like the wider cricket sphere, which I think is a really good thing. Like the likes of Afridi, or the Darryl Mitchell, or Adam Zampa, and these guys that are essentially they're T20 superstars now. Like they're going to be the new face of cricket in years to come. And I think that's even Babar Azam to a certain extent, and Rizwan. Obviously Pakistan don't necessarily play the biggest and the best teams generally, or they're not showcased as much as other teams. So I think that's a really good thing, and it's a really positive thing for cricket to have these next generation of players coming through that are going to obviously carry the torch for cricket into the future.
Yeah,
I'm just wondering whether West Indies will see that, and I really don't want to see. And no disrespect to these blokes, I don't want to see the like. I know Darren Brower has quit. I'm hoping Chris Gale's quit for their sake. For example, I think Kieran Pollard maybe needs to pull the pin as well, because he just didn't look interested.
Bravo, yeah.
I know Dwayne Bravo's gone now. He's quit, but you really can't have a side with an average age of about 28, 30. When you look at all the other teams,
it did have a bit of a last dance feel to it, didn't it?
It did. Their performances really sort of showed that up, and it was like it was embarrassing for. I mean, that game against Australia, I thought the first 5 overs, they've actually turned up, and then all of a sudden they just they throw it away, and then the youngsters coming through, and like your Paul Rands and the Hitmeyers and stuff like that, they seem to be decent cricketers. They got too much pressure on their shoulders because they got to carry all these old blokes, and it's not fair on them.
Yeah, it is true. But yeah, so all in all,
hopefully in a year's time, they'll be
great
West Indies are back.
great tournament.
Yeah.
Well, here, I mean, all I can say is come on forward. 2022 World Cup, because I mean I've had a ball watching this, and I'm sure everyone else has as well. So
be a better time zone for everybody
we'll
as
be
well
here
next
to talk
time.
about it
We
again.
we won't. You'll be back in
next-
Australia then, won't you?
I will.
Possibly.
Yeah.
There we are.
Yeah.
Who knows where we'll be this time in 12 months'
Oh,
time.
there you go.
So-
Well, hopefully we can run. Hopefully we'll run it back at the MCG then. Hey.
Yeah, New Zealand versus Australia at the MCG. That'd be right.
Well, for now.
With a special performance from Baz McCallum.
Thanks so much for your time, guys, and we'll chat again soon, eh?
Absolutely.
Thanks. Thank you.
Cheers, guys.
Dum, dum, dum.